Hello and welcome back to your weekly Arsenal update with myself, Jake, at Arsenal Analysed. I hope everyone is doing very, very well, not too down because of the international break, which is so close to being over. But I have a whole bunch of news to share with you today from many awards that Arsenal folk are involved in, which is lovely to see. Some insight into Arsenal's transfer strategy over the summer just gone, and finally some worrying injury updates concerning a couple of Arsenal players before heading in to what is a huge week for Arsenal. Coming up first, the North London Derby, Champions League, and then Manchester City. So if you are looking forward to this video, it does let me know that you enjoy this content. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here and you want to see more of the same. But let's waste no more time at all and jump into one of the smaller stories that I'll be sharing with you today regarding Arsenal's Champions League squad. A couple of surprises in here. Most of you will have probably already seen the squad that Arteta has picked for the upcoming Champions League campaign. You could argue that Tommy Setford is somewhat of a surprise inclusion. However, when you look at Arsenal and the goalkeeping department, it's hard to see who else Arsenal will have included as their third choice. Other than Setford, I suppose the only other real surprise in here is the inclusion of Kieran Tierney. Will he get minutes? That is the big question, considering that there might have been other players Arsenal could have included. Now, this does not include the so-called B list for Arsenal. So you would imagine that the likes of Nwaneri and Lewis Scully will be involved in this particular squad, including other players, of course. So what do you make of the Arsenal Champions League squad? And as mentioned in the intro, Arsenal are up for a number of awards for August, which is no surprise after a very good start to our campaign. And as you can see on screen, we have none other than David Raya and Bukayo Saka up for Player of the Month. I don't think there's too long left for you to be able to vote, so make sure you do get your votes in. No surprise either that David Raya has 2 saves up for Save of the Month, which included that incredible save against Wolves and then also against Aston Villa. And lastly, Mikel Arteta up for Manager of the Month against Guardiola, Arne Slot, which I think, looking at how Man City have started the season, it could well go to him. But more impressively, when it comes to Arsenal awards, not that I'm expecting any of them to win this next award, it's nice for them to be involved in the conversation. And that is none other than the Ballon d'Or. William Saliba, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka all in that 30-man shortlist, which also includes former gunner Granit Xhaka, who also had a fantastic campaign last season. Not to sound negative, more being realistic, whilst it's nice for Arsenal players to be included in this list, I do not expect any of the Arsenal boys to win the award. If I was a betting man, my money would be between Rodri, who obviously won the Premier League and the Euros last year, and Vinicius Jr., who had an excellent campaign with Real Madrid, obviously winning La Liga and the Champions League. Let me know down in the comments below. Who do you expect to win this year's Ballon d'Or? Any surprises maybe? Let's wait and see. Now, as promised, I mentioned that I would give you some insight into Arsenal's transfer strategy over the summer. There's a very reliable source by the name of Team News and Ticks on social media. He's featured on many different YouTube channels. He has a Patreon. he's a very well-connected man, or at least it seems to be the case. He doesn't often get things wrong. He's a faceless account, which would suggest to me that he doesn't want to reveal his identity in then getting caught and losing the connections that he does have. So let's go through some of the things that a lot of us probably wouldn't have known about over the summer. Some of them, yes, we probably did, but others not so much. Starting with Mbuemo. Really surprised by this. Excellent player, of course, but Arsenal's data team were really impressed and had him high up on the list, and it was a deal that the club was strongly considering over the summer. However, a move was always very unlikely, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not he is a player that we return to looking at in maybe January or next summer, depending on whether that list is updated, which you would imagine would be the case. Now, one that isn't as surprising involves Nico Williams. A week before the end of the window, as far as this contact had heard, Arsenal hadn't had a no from Nico Williams. He never said no throughout the window, apparently, but his total package demands, which many people will have been aware of, including wages and bonuses, were going up and up as the window went on. So maybe this was his way of saying no without actually saying no from an approach. And obviously we now know that he's going to stay in La Liga for, well, at least until January, more than likely until the end of the season. Many people think that he has his heart set on Barcelona. Others think that he may end up moving to the Premier League. But one thing is for sure, he is going to be hot property come January and next summer. So one to certainly keep an eye on. And moving on to a player that has been linked with Arsenal in the past, and Arsenal obviously wanting to bolster those numbers in the forward line, more specifically out wide, to create competition and backup for Bukayo Saka. And that does include Raphinha. Now, Arsenal did apparently explore deals for both Raphinha and Onana in the summer. Onana eventually ending up at Aston Villa. Started very strong, of course. However, one of the main drivers behind neither of them joining Arsenal is that they both wanted to be guaranteed starters, which is something that Arsenal simply could not offer, especially on that right-hand side. When Saka is fit and well, he is the main man. And in midfield, we have Declan Rice. Would he have been ahead of Thomas Partey? I don't know. Would we have still signed Mikel Arteta? I don't know. But if we had have done, again, likelihood is he would have been lower down in the pecking order. My question to you is, would you have preferred Mikel Arteta or Onana over the summer? Do let me know down below in the comments. Now, another one that did surprise me, and he nearly ended up moving elsewhere in the summer. I had absolutely no idea that we were even involved in the conversation, to be honest with you. And that is Anthony Gordan, who has had a good couple of weeks in the Premier League, back in the England squad after missing out in the Euros. And when I say missing out, I mean not featuring. Obviously, he was part of the squad, but apparently Arsenal had inquired about Anthony Gordan late in the summer transfer window, but Newcastle did not want to lose the player, nor did they have the financial need many clubs had expected from them. Gordan, however, would have been interested in a potential move, and we do know that Liverpool did inquire about the player early on in the summer, looking to take advantage of their so-called financial problems, for example, PSR. Now, it's going to be a very interesting one at Newcastle come the summer, because they've got a number of top players that may be looking for a move if they do not get Champions League football. Now, another player that you can see on screen is Victor Osimhen, who we all know eventually ended up at Galatasaray. An absolute mess of a situation over the summer for him. Arsenal's interest in Osimhen waned at the beginning of the year due to concerns over his attitude. There were a number of videos that leaked online around arguments, if you will, that he had with the Nigerian manager, and also coupled with his very, very high wage demands, which was, well, in the public due to the interest he had from the likes of Saudi Arabia. And also we know that Chelsea were in for Osimhen late in the window, and it essentially broke down due to his high wage demands. Is that a thing of the past now in the Premier League when it comes to FFP and PSR? Are clubs looking to lower those wages that they offer players? We've seen it with Sterling coming to Arsenal, we've seen it with Sancho going to Chelsea, and obviously Chelsea going for Osimhen. Clubs just don't want to pay that money anymore. Is that a thing of the past? Those high wages. Now, to end off this particular segment, before we get into the big stories of today's video, we've got a player that was very high on the list for a lot of Arsenal fans over the summer, and that regards Alexander Isak, or Isaac, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Now, Team News and Ticks had been told that Isak will be very, very high on Arsenal's list. He's definitely someone I expect them to revisit next summer. If Newcastle do not get Europe, you'd imagine he'd be angling for a move. Now, Arsenal were unsuccessful in securing the services of Sesko, and Isak was apparently the next person on the list. Newcastle wanting somewhere in the region of around 80 to 100 million pounds, and not really wanting to entertain any real offers unless the player wanted to push for a move. Very similar to Bruno Guimaraes, who was apparently attracting interest from Arsenal and Manchester City. But as Team News and Ticks suggests here, as the same with Gordan and a number of other players that have done really well for Newcastle, if they don't secure that European football, or maybe if Eddie Howe becomes the next England manager, you'd imagine that some of these players will look to make the next logical step in their careers, with all due respect to Newcastle, who are a very, very good side. And as you probably noticed on screen, there was Raheem Sterling, who we have spoken about quite a few times on this channel in the past few weeks. And the reason why I brought him to your attention, hopefully for the last time when it comes to his transfer, a bit of a laughing matter really, or something that we can laugh and use as a bit of banter for Chelsea fans. Some details of the deal have actually leaked from James Ollie, journalist. Arsenal's final deal with Chelsea for Raheem Sterling includes no loan fee and a requirement to pay less than half of the player's wages over the course of the season-long loan, which effectively means that Chelsea will be paying Raheem Sterling in the region of £10 million to play for Arsenal, which is absolutely insane if you ask me. So by all means, use it to banter some Chelsea fans, especially if he helps Arsenal get over the line in achieving silverware this year. What a deal that is. And well, Edu haters, watch out is all I can say. So some insight there into Arsenal's transfer strategy over the summer. If any more information is available over the course of the next coming weeks, I will bring it to you, of course. But we are now heading into the big two stories of today's video. First of which could somewhat end up being okay, but the last one is a real concern. So first things first, Ricardo Calafiori, another Arsenal signing who seems to have picked up an injury. Rotten luck with new signings of late. That's now Calafiori, Moreno, last season Timber. Now thankfully this freak accident of an injury, which seems to be involving his calf, on the receiving end from Dembele, who essentially goes flying through the air and lands in the path of the running of Calafiori, seems to have picked up a calf injury. Now he had left the Italian national team over the weekend as more of a precaution after suffering the injury, and has since returned to Arsenal to be assessed. Now he's nursing this knock, however it is not deemed to be serious, and Arsenal didn't want the player taking any risks. And as I say, he's now being assessed in London. And for all I know, at the time of recording this video, there may have been more information that has leaked around the seriousness of this injury and how long he may be unavailable for. Arteta obviously has his press conference this coming Friday lunchtime, where if no details have been shared, I'm sure he will share an update. But one major concern for Arsenal, where he will probably not be available now for the next 3 to 4 weeks, is the unfortunate injury to Martin Odegaard in a game that did not need to take place. And as we can see here on the right hand side, his foot stuck in the turf with the player approaching, making things much more worse. It has been described as an ankle sprain. Now, depending on the grade of that sprain, going from 1 to 3 will depend on the severity of the injury and how long he is out of action for. And as pictured on the left-hand side, on crutches, which does not look good. The Norwegian manager said after the game that it looked painful in the dressing room. We know that it was an ankle sprain. Those who have played football know that with luck, it can turn out okay if the ligaments aren't torn. So grade 2 would be a partial tear, grade 3 would be a complete tear. So that's what we're hoping hasn't happened. And he goes on to say that I'm not sure Arteta will be praising me for this, which is an odd comment to make. However, since then, the Norwegian national team doctor who treated Odegaard in the changing room has since come out and said that the injury of this nature, suggesting that it is more like a grade 1, takes a minimum of 3 weeks. Everything else is a bonus, and it can take even longer if that were to be the case. Now, he goes on to say that he knows that the next national games on October 10th will be very doubtful for Martin Odegaard. They are investigating now with an MRI to obviously be on the safe side. There is probably no breach in his foot, which is again another big positive. Ankle injuries are very painful straight away. Martin had extreme pain and he was very worried. And another real big positive, I suppose, if you can call it that, to come out of this is no suggestion of a fracture, which would mean he was out of action for even longer. So what we're hoping for here is a grade 1 sprain, which is best case scenario, but it does mean that he will still be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks, missing key crucial games for Arsenal against Tottenham, midweek away against Atalanta, and also Manchester City the following weekend. We're already without Rice this weekend, so some selection headaches for Arteta for sure. So ending on a bit of a down note in this particular video, I hope all of this has been informative. I hope I've brought you up to date with everything that's happened with regards to Arsenal in the last week. And as I said before, if you do enjoy this type of content, drop a like. It lets me know that you do enjoy it and I should be making more, or even more often for that matter. Subscribe if you're new around here, if you do want to see more of this, as well as the other content on the channel, like live match analysis, which we will bring you straight after the game on Sunday. What a spicy affair that is going to be. But for now, I'm Jake. Thank you very much for your time. Stay safe, take care, and come on, you Gunners.